The twin suns of Nyrus were setting behind the blue hills when a sudden streak of light crossed the evening sky. The villagers stopped their work and looked up as the burning trail cut across the clouds and vanished beyond the forest ridge. The sound came next, deep and heavy, shaking the ground under their feet. It was not thunder. It was something falling from the sky. Lyrae stood near the water fields, holding a small metal tray filled with growing plants. Her soft silver eyes widened. She had seen lights in the sky before. Meteor showers, cargo drones, old satellites, but this one was different. It was too fast, too heavy, and it did not fade away. It crashed. Smoke was rising from the far trees. The elders would surely warn everyone to stay away, but curiosity was stronger in her heart. She left the tray on the ground and began to walk toward the forest. The air smelled of burning metal and strange fuel. As she moved closer, the trees grew darker, their tall, thin leaves whispering in the wind. When she reached the crash site, she saw a small ship lying broken across the soft ground. Its hull was gray, covered with scratches and marks she did not recognize. Sparks still flickered along one side. The ship looked alive and dying at the same time. Lyrae felt a mix of fear and wonder. A sound came from inside. It was a voice, weak and heavy, speaking a language she did not understand at first. Then her translator chip caught the signal and formed the words in her mind. "Help. Is anyone there?" Lyrae stepped closer and saw a man lying near the open hatch. His clothes were torn, his face covered in dirt and blood. He looked different from her people. His skin was pale, his hair dark, and his eyes, half open, were the color of Earth's oceans she had seen in pictures. She had never met a human before, but the stories told by travelers spoke of them as powerful and strange. The elders said humans were born of war and shaped by endless struggle. Yet this one looked hurt, lost, and alone. She knelt beside him and checked his pulse. It was faint but steady. She touched a button on her wrist pad, calling for medical assistance from her village, but the signal was weak here, so she tore a strip of cloth from her robe and wrapped it around his arm to stop the bleeding. The man opened his eyes wider and whispered, "Where am I?" "You are safe," she said softly. "You are on Nyrus. My name is Lyrae, I will help you." He tried to move, but pain stopped him. His hand trembled slightly, and she noticed the faint mark of a tattoo on his wrist, an old emblem of a bird with wings spread wide. She did not know what it meant. "Stay still," she told him gently. "You need rest." He gave a tired nod and closed his eyes again. By the time Lyrae's hover cart arrived, the smoke had cleared, leaving the ship silent and still. She guided the cart beside the wreck and carefully lifted the man onto the stretcher. He was heavier than she expected. His muscles felt strong even in weakness. Once he was secure, she took him back to her village. The Narians had not seen a human in generations. When they gathered around the cart, they whispered among themselves. Some were afraid, some curious. The village healer, old Maron, inspected the stranger and frowned. "He is human indeed," Maron said. "I never thought I would see one alive. What is he doing here?" "He crashed," Lyrae replied. "His ship is damaged." "We cannot leave him there," the elder sighed. "Humans bring trouble. Their kind has a long history of war. Still, we must show care to those in need. Put him in the rest chamber." They placed Daniel, the name they later learned from his identification tag, inside a clear healing pod filled with soft blue mist. The pod's scanners began to repair minor injuries and clean his wounds. Lyrae stayed beside him, watching as his breathing became steady. For the next 2 days, Daniel slept. During that time, Lyrae learned more about his ship. The vessel's design was old but strong. It carried markings of the Earth Alliance, a name she had only seen in history texts. There was a small emblem near the cockpit, a circle of stars with the word HumanMight below it. She didn't know what it meant, but something about it gave her chills. On the 3rd day, Daniel awoke. His eyes opened slowly and he looked around the room. Lyrae smiled in relief. "You are awake," she said. He blinked, confused at first, then nodded. "I remember the crash. Thank you for helping me." "You are welcome," she answered kindly. "You must rest. You were badly hurt." He sat up a little and winced. "I have had worse. I just need water." She brought him a glass from the table. He drank slowly, studying her face. "You are not human," he said after a moment. "No, we are Nyrians," she replied. "Our world is peaceful. We do not fight." Daniel looked down at his hands, thinking quietly. "Peaceful sounds good," he said at last. "It has been a long time since I saw that." Lyrae tilted her head. You sound like someone who has seen many worlds. I have, he said softly. Too many. Over the next few days, Daniel recovered quickly. He began helping the villagers repair old machines and fix broken tools. He was calm and polite, though quiet most of the time. The children liked him and followed him around, asking questions about Earth. He would smile and tell them small stories about oceans, mountains, and the sound of rain. He never spoke of war or danger. Lyrae started to believe that perhaps the stories about humans were wrong. This one seemed gentle and wise, not violent. One afternoon, while Lyrae worked beside him repairing a water pump, she asked, "Why did you come here?" Daniel looked up at the sky for a moment. "I was searching for a place far from the wars," he said simply. "I wanted peace." She nodded, understanding the feeling. "Then you chose well." "Nerys is quiet. No one fights here," he gave a small smile. "Then I hope it stays that way." As time passed, Lyrae began to enjoy his company. He helped without asking, taught without pride, and listened with patience. When her people thanked him, he only said, "Humans fix what they can. It is our way." His words were simple but carried weight. There was something deep inside him that she could not explain, a quiet strength behind his calm eyes. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, Lyrae found Daniel sitting alone near the river. The water reflected the golden light and the air was still. She sat beside him. "You seem far away," she said. He nodded slowly. "I think of home, of what I left behind. Do you miss it?" "Some parts," he answered. "But some things are better left in the past." She watched him in silence for a moment. "You do not talk much about your people." "There is not much to say," he replied quietly. "We are strong, but strength has a price. I hoped coming here would help me forget that part." His voice carried a sadness she did not understand, yet she felt it deeply. She wanted to ask more, but something told her to wait. When she returned to her home that night, the sky was clear and calm. But far above, hidden behind the stars, a dark shape moved through the void. A fleet of ships not from Earth and not from Nerys. They were the Krith Raiders, searching for new worlds to conquer. Their path would soon cross with Nerys, though no one knew it yet. Back in the village, Daniel stood alone under the twin moons. His gaze turned upward, his jaw tight. A soft wind passed over him, carrying the sound of distant waves. His expression changed slightly. The calm faded for a moment, replaced by something sharper, like a blade waiting to be drawn. He closed his eyes and whispered to himself, "Peace never lasts forever." Then he turned and walked back to the village quietly, his steps steady, his face calm again. To the people of Nerys, he looked like a man at rest. But deep inside, something old and powerful still lived within him, waiting for the day when peace would need a protector once more. The days on Nerys passed quietly after Daniel's recovery. The villagers grew used to seeing him working among them, helping in the fields, repairing machines, and teaching new skills. His calm nature made everyone trust him. Children often ran to him with questions, and he would answer with patience and a small smile. To Lyrae, he had become a symbol of peace and friendship between worlds. But peace never lasted forever. One morning, Lyrae was walking toward the village center when she saw a group of elders gathered around a holographic map. Their faces were pale with worry. She stepped closer and saw strange red marks moving across the sky map above them. Each mark carried a faint signal pattern. The elder Moran looked up when she approached. "Something is coming," Moran said. "Unknown ships. Large ones." Daniel entered the hall at that moment, wiping his hands on a cloth after fixing a generator. His eyes moved to the map and his expression changed instantly. The red marks were moving fast, their formation tight and military. "How far?" he asked. Marin turned toward him. 3 jumps away, maybe 2 days before they reach orbit. "Have you tried sending a contact signal?" Daniel asked. "We did," said Marin. No reply. Daniel stepped closer, studying the pattern carefully. "That is not a trade fleet. That is a raid formation." Lyrae frowned. "Raiders? But who would attack Nerys?" "We have nothing of value." Daniel's jaw tightened. To a raider, peace itself is value. Easy targets bring easy rewards. The elders exchanged uneasy glances. Nerys had no army, no defense ships. Their ancestors had lived in peace for generations. They believed in creation, not destruction. But now fear moved through the room like a cold wind. Lyrae turned to Daniel. "You have seen this before, haven't you?" He nodded slowly. "Many times." "Then what should we do?" she asked. He looked at the map again. Prepare to move the villagers to the caves under the northern ridge. They are deep and hard to scan. Gather food, water, and medical supplies. Do not panic, but move quickly. His tone was steady and sure. The elders listened without question. Something in his voice carried quiet authority. He was not shouting, yet everyone felt he had been in command before. Lyrae followed him outside as he began to inspect the village's small defense towers. They were old and unused for years, covered in dust. Daniel climbed one and checked the power lines. Most of this is still good, he said. It only needs a proper energy core. We do not have weapons, Lyrae said softly. Then we make what we can, Daniel replied. Sometimes defense is not about power. It is about using what you have. For the next several hours, Daniel worked without rest. He linked old generators to the tower systems, repaired broken sensors, and taught villagers how to use communication relays. Lyrae stayed beside him, learning quickly. His focus was sharp, his hand steady. When someone hesitated, he encouraged them with calm words. By evening, they had set up a weak but working detection grid around the village. It was not much, but it could warn them if ships entered the atmosphere. As the sun set, Daniel stood near the field, staring at the sky. Lyrae came to stand beside him. You do not look surprised, she said. I am not, he replied quietly. The universe is wide, but danger always finds peaceful worlds. You speak like someone who has seen too much. He gave a small smile. Perhaps. The night was cool and silent. Lyrae noticed that Daniel kept glancing toward the stars, his eyes sharp and focused. It was as if he could already see the raiders coming. His calmness gave her comfort, even though fear grew inside her. The next morning, a deep rumble echoed across the sky. Everyone looked up. The red marks on the map were no longer signals, they were real. Dozens of dark ships entered orbit, their metallic surfaces catching the sunlight. The Krith raiders had arrived. The village alarms began to sound. Children were taken to shelters and supplies were moved underground. Daniel climbed to the top of the signal tower and watched the ships arrange themselves in a half-circle formation above the valley. His face was unreadable. Lyrae joined him, her heart pounding. They are so many, she whispered. Yes, Daniel said softly. Too many for a peaceful world. What will they do? They will send a message first. Raiders always do. They want control through fear. Moments later, the largest ship sent a wideband broadcast. A cold mechanical voice filled the air. People of Nyris, surrender your resources and energy supplies. Refuse and your settlements will burn. The message repeated twice, then ended. The village fell silent except for the sound of the wind. Lyrae looked at Daniel. What do we do now? He turned to her. You gather everyone in the caves. I will handle the signal response. Alone? She asked, eyes wide. He looked at her calmly. For now, go. She hesitated, then nodded and ran to help the villagers. Daniel returned to the hall and began working on the old transmitter. He adjusted frequencies and reconnected power lines, his movements fast and practiced. Within minutes, he opened a private communication line to the raider fleet. This is Daniel Hayes of Earth, he said into the mic. You will not harm this planet. The reply came quickly, filled with mocking laughter. A human? One man against a fleet? You must be joking, Daniel's voice stayed calm. You misunderstand me. I am not here to fight. I am here to warn you. Turn away. The raider captain laughed again. We have scanned your world. It has no defense, no army, no shield network. What will you do, human? Daniel paused, then said quietly, survive. That is what humans do best. He cut the channel before they could reply. Outside, the villagers were nearly ready to move. Lyrae helped carry food containers toward the caves. But her mind was filled with worry. She had seen something different in Daniel's eyes when he spoke, something strong, almost frightening in its stillness. When she returned to find him, he was standing near the edge of the valley watching the sky. The wind pushed his hair back, and the light of the ships above reflected in his eyes. They are preparing to land, he said. The first wave will come soon. Can we stop them? She asked. Not yet, he replied. But we can buy time. He asked her to show him the location of the old defense grid mentioned in village records. She led him to a deep cave at the far end of the ridge. Inside, under layers of dust and rock, old machines slept in silence. Their lights were long dead. These were built by our ancestors, Lyrae said. They believed in defense, but after many years of peace, we forgot how to use them. Daniel brushed his hand over the control panel. Then it is time to remember. He began reconnecting the systems. His hands moved like someone who had done this 1,000 times. Sparks flew as power lines came alive. The machines hummed softly, awakening from their long rest. Lyrae watched him, amazed by his skill. "How do you know all this?" she asked. He gave a faint smile. "Old training. Old habits. Were you a soldier?" she asked softly. He paused for a moment before answering. "Once." His tone was quiet, but it carried a weight she could feel. She wanted to ask more, but a loud noise outside stopped her. The ground shook as the first Krith dropships entered the atmosphere. Flames cut through the sky, and the air filled with the sound of engines. Daniel looked up through the opening of the cave. "They are here." Lyrae's heart raced. "What do we do?" He pressed a few final buttons on the control panel. The old defense grid hummed louder, and lines of blue light spread through the valley floor. Energy turrets hidden under the soil began to rise, their metal surfaces glowing faintly. The entire system came alive. Daniel turned to her. "Now we wait." "But we cannot fight them," she said. "We will not fight if we can avoid it," he said calmly. "But we will not run either." Lyrae looked at him, seeing the calm strength in his eyes. He was no longer just a visitor or a lost traveler. There was something deeper within him, something old and powerful. She felt both fear and admiration. For the first time, she realized that Daniel might be more than human. Above the valley, the Krith ships began to descend, black shadows against the bright sky. The air trembled as they approached. The people of Nyrus hid in the caves, holding each other close, waiting for what would come next. Daniel stood at the front of the cave, the wind moving through his hair, his face steady. He took a deep breath and whispered to himself, his voice barely a sound. "Let them come." The sky above Nyrus turned dark as the first Krith dropships broke through the clouds. The air filled with deep rumbling sounds as the large metal crafts hovered over the valley. Their shadows covered the green fields and silver rivers, casting fear across the peaceful world. From the caves under the northern ridge, the villagers watched in silence. Some cried quietly while others prayed to their ancient spirits. They had never seen war, never heard the sound of enemy ships. Lyrae stood near the cave entrance, her eyes fixed on the horizon where Daniel stood alone, his figure outlined against the rising dust. Daniel was calm. The wind moved his hair and his face showed no fear. His gaze was locked on the sky, studying the enemy formation like someone reading a familiar map. The turrets of the ancient defense grid hummed softly around him, waiting for his command. The first Krith ship began its descent, releasing groups of small black drones that flew toward the surface. The drones carried scanners and weapons, searching for signs of resistance. Daniel touched a button on his wristband, linking his signal to the defense grid. Lyrae saw the blue light of the grid spread through the valley again, brighter this time. The old machines answered his call like loyal soldiers remembering their purpose. The turrets turned toward the sky, their targeting sensors coming alive. When the first drone reached the ground, Daniel spoke a single word through the control mic. "Activate." A flash of blue light burst from the nearest turret, cutting through the air with precise energy. The drone exploded in mid-flight, scattering sparks across the clouds. The villagers gasped. Lyrae's heart raced. She had never seen such power. More drones came down, but Daniel moved quickly, adjusting power levels and switching fire directions. The old defense grid responded as if guided by his thoughts. Energy beams struck again and again, filling the valley with light. For the first time, the people of Nyrus saw what human skill and courage looked like. When the first wave ended, Daniel stepped down from the control platform and turned toward Lyrae. "Tell the people to stay in the caves. This is only the beginning." She nodded and ran to deliver the message. Even in her fear, she felt pride. This man, who had come from a broken ship, was now standing between her people and destruction. Moments later, 3 large Krith ships landed near the far field. Their metal doors opened and tall armored figures stepped out. The Krith were known for their cold and harsh nature. Their armor shone like black stone and their eyes glowed faintly red. They carried energy spears and moved with machine-like precision. Daniel watched them approach. He adjusted the wristband on his arm and spoke softly into it. "Manual override grid defense pattern 2. The defense towers turned and fired again, sending waves of energy across the field. The Krith soldiers raised their shields, blocking part of the attack, but the ground shook under the blasts. Some were thrown back while others advanced slowly. Daniel moved down the ridge, staying low. His body moved with smooth control like someone who had done this many times before. When the nearest Krith reached the lower valley, Daniel activated a small device on his belt. A pulse of blue energy expanded outward, disabling their weapons temporarily. He then used the brief silence to strike back with precision, using the environment to his advantage. From the cave, Lyrae watched everything on the small screen connected to the grid sensors. Her hands trembled. She had never imagined a single man could fight against a force like this. Daniel was not only brave, he was skilled beyond anything she had seen. He fought not with rage but with calm focus, his movements clean and efficient. As the battle continued, the Krith commander sent a communication signal directly to Daniel. A deep metallic voice echoed through his earpiece. "Humans, surrender. You cannot stop us. Leave this world and live," Daniel replied evenly. "This world is under my protection. You will not touch it." "Protection?" the Krith mocked. "You are one. We are many." Daniel looked at the horizon where more ships were forming. "One is enough." He ended the transmission and returned to the control panel. His face remained calm, but his eyes showed a deep fire. Lyrae recognized that look now. It was the same quiet strength she had seen before, only sharper. The Krith commander, angry at the humans' resistance, ordered all ships to attack. Dozens of fire beams rained down from the sky. The ground shook violently as explosions covered the valley. The defense towers struggled to handle the pressure. Daniel ran across the ridge, repairing connections and rerouting power lines. His suit was covered in dust and smoke, but he did not stop. Lyrae wanted to run to him, but the path outside was dangerous. She could only watch and pray. When the grid finally began to fail, Daniel reached for a small case he had brought from his crashed ship. Inside was an old Earth Alliance device, a portable core from the HumanMight defense system. He connected it to the main power port. Instantly, the blue light of the grid turned brighter than ever. The machines roared back to life, their energy beams cutting through the air with renewed strength. The Krith forces began to fall back, caught off guard by the sudden power surge. Daniel stood tall in the middle of the storm, controlling every turret manually. His hands moved fast, his voice steady as he called out commands through his headset. To the people watching from the caves, it looked like the entire valley was answering his will. Light and sound filled the air, turning night into day. Finally, after several long minutes, the Krith ships began to pull away. The first wave of battle was over. The sky cleared slowly, leaving only trails of smoke and broken machines. Lyrae ran out of the cave, ignoring the Elder's warnings. She crossed the burned ground and reached Daniel, who was standing near the control tower. His face was covered in dust, his uniform torn at the edges, but his eyes were bright and steady. "You did it," she said breathlessly. "You saved us." He looked at her, breathing slowly. "For now, you fought like an army," she said softly. "I did not know humans could do this." He gave a small smile. "Most can't. I trained for years before I left Earth. I was part of a defense group called HumanMight." "HumanMight," she repeated. "That was the name on your ship." "Yes," he said quietly. "It means strength and unity. We protect colonies and lost worlds. At least we used to." Lyrae stepped closer. "You are not just a traveler, are you?" "No," Daniel admitted. "I came here because I wanted peace. But peace never stays without someone to guard it." His words stayed in her mind. She saw the tiredness in his eyes, the silent pain of someone who had seen too much war but still chose to fight for others. The next hours passed with the villagers helping rebuild the damaged areas. Daniel guided them, checking power lines and repairing parts of the grid. Everyone looked at him with respect and gratitude. He never raised his voice, never showed pride. He worked like one of them, quietly and steadily. That night, the village gathered near the hill where Daniel had fought. The elders thanked him in front of everyone. Maron spoke first. "You have given us what we had forgotten, the courage to stand. We owe you our lives." Daniel shook his head. "You owe me nothing. You only need to remember that peace must be protected. It is never free." Lyrae stood beside him, watching the stars. The air was still, but there was a feeling of change. She could sense it in every heart around her. The people no longer saw Daniel as a visitor. They saw him as one of them. Later, when everyone returned to rest, Lyrae found Daniel near the silent defense tower. He was looking up at the stars again, deep in thought. "They will come back, won't they?" she asked quietly. "Yes," he said. "They always do. They hate losing to a human. Then what will you do? He looked at her and smiled gently. What humans always do. Adapt, stand, and fight again if we must, Lyra nodded. You are not like anyone I have met. You carry peace and power at the same time. He looked away toward the horizon. Humans learn to be both. That is how we survive. The night grew calm, but far above, the Krith commander watched through his ship's damaged screens. His eyes narrowed. The human had defeated his first attack, but this was not the end. More ships were gathering in deep space. Daniel sensed it too. He turned from the stars and whispered quietly to himself, "The next battle will be harder." But he was ready. The warrior within him had awakened, and he would not rest until Nyrus was safe. The city of Arvian had never known silence like this. Once filled with trade ships, glowing towers, and alien music, now it waited in uneasy stillness. The skies, usually alive with movement, were empty. Every citizen felt the coming storm. Lyra stood at the observation deck, looking down at the flickering shields that covered the city. Her hands were trembling slightly, though she tried to hide it. "Do you think they will come here?" she asked quietly. Beside her, Dan stood still, his eyes fixed on the distant horizon. "They will," he said. "They always finish what they start. But this time we will be ready." He was no longer the quiet, humble man she had once met. Something had awakened inside him. His movements were sharper. His voice carried a strength she had never noticed before. It wasn't arrogance. It was confidence built on hidden power. Lyra turned toward him. "You said your people once fought them. How can we win if even your kind lost?" Dan's gaze did not waver. "Because last time we didn't fight as one. We hid, we ran, we waited for someone else to save us. But I'm done running. We will face them together." Lyra felt the weight in his words. He wasn't only speaking of humans. He meant everyone. The aliens, the soldiers, the people of every world that had once feared the Varan dominion. For the next few hours, the entire defense command worked non-stop. Engineers fixed energy cannons, pilots fueled ships, and communication officers reached out to the few nearby colonies that still answered their call. Every voice sounded the same, tired but hopeful. Lyra followed Dan as he moved through the command center. He spoke to leaders and soldiers, not like a commander giving orders, but like a friend reminding them why they had to stand. "We're not fighting for glory," he said. "We're fighting for tomorrow." As the hours passed, Lyra began to see what made him different. There was something deep within him that wasn't just human instinct, it was something older, stronger, something that didn't break under fear. She wondered if that was what he meant by the warrior within. Night came. The city's lights dimmed to power the shields. Lyra joined Dan on the roof of the central tower. The air was cold, the stars sharp and distant. "Why do you look up there so often?" she asked. Dan smiled faintly. "Because I remember when my people first looked to the stars. We thought space was endless peace, endless wonder, but we learned that peace is something you fight to protect." Lyra's heart ached as she listened. "And if we lose? Then we'll make sure they remember us," he said softly. "Even if we fall, they'll know what it means to face humans." The words carried a quiet power. She didn't feel fear anymore. She felt pride. The next morning, alarms sounded across the city. Radar showed hundreds of enemy ships entering orbit. The Varan fleet had arrived. Their massive carriers blocked the light, turning day into shadow. Every person in Arvian held their breath as the sky filled with dark shapes. Lyra stood beside Dan as explosions echoed far above. The city's defense grid came alive, firing bright streams of energy into the sky. Dan put on his armor, the same one he had hidden away since the last war. It was made of strange metal, shaped to his body like it had been waiting for him. Lyra watched in awe as he activated it. The markings on the armor glowed softly, ancient human tech long thought to be lost. She stepped closer. "That armor, it's from your world?" "Yes," Dan said. "From the old wars when humans still built things meant to last. My grandfather wore this when Earth fought back against the first alien invasion. It remembers his strength." Lyra felt something shift inside her. It wasn't only his power that moved her. It was his connection to something greater, something that stretched through generations. As the first enemy blasts hit the shield, the entire city shook. Dan turned to her. "Get to the command center. You'll need to coordinate the lower defenses." She hesitated. "And you?" "I'll go up there," he said, pointing to the sky. "They need to see what a human can do." Before she could reply, his armor wings unfolded with a low hum. A moment later, he lifted off, soaring into the smoke and fire above. Lyra watched as he vanished into the battle. In the command center, every screen showed chaos. Ships were falling, shields flickering, and explosions painted the sky red and white. But through the noise, one signal stood out. A lone fighter streaking through enemy lines faster than any known craft. "That's him," one of the officers whispered. "That's Dan." Lyra watched as his signal moved in impossible patterns, cutting through enemy fire, striking with precision. He wasn't flying with technology alone. He was fighting with instinct, something deep inside his blood that guided him like an old rhythm. In orbit, the enemy commander watched in disbelief as one human turned their formation into ruin. "Who's that pilot?" he demanded. "Unknown," his aide replied. "But he's human." The commander's face darkened. "Then we've made a mistake." On the surface, Lyra held her breath as the skies flashed again and again. Her heart raced with fear and pride mixed together. She could feel every explosion like a pulse in her chest. When the smoke began to clear, the enemy ships pulled back, regrouping in higher orbit. For a moment, the world went silent again. Dan landed back on the tower, armor cracked but still glowing faintly. He took off his helmet and looked at Lyra. His face was tired, covered in dust and sweat, but his eyes burned with calm fire. "They'll be back," he said. "That was only the first wave." Lyra stepped closer, her voice shaking. "You saved us." Dan shook his head. "No, we saved each other. But next time, it won't be defense. It will be freedom." As dawn broke over the damaged city, people came out of shelters and looked at the sky. For the first time in years, they saw hope shining through the smoke. Dan looked out over the horizon, his armor reflecting the morning light. The human warrior had returned, not as a conqueror but as a protector. And deep inside, Lyra knew the war had only begun. But this time, humanity was not fighting alone. The dawn on Nyrus was quiet, almost peaceful. But everyone knew it was only a temporary calm. The sky still bore faint smoke trails from the previous day's battle, and the ground was scarred with craters and broken metal. Villagers walked carefully among the remnants of the destroyed drones and debris, helping one another clear the streets. Lyra moved through the city with Daniel by her side. His armor, now repaired, reflected the first light of the twin suns. Even after the long night of fighting, he seemed calm, steady, almost untouchable. But Lyra noticed the slight weariness in his shoulders and the small lines forming around his eyes. The human warrior had carried the weight of the battle alone, and now it rested on her heart as well. "You saved all of us," she said softly as they walked among the villagers. Daniel shook his head. "I only bought us time. You, your people, and the machines, they all fought too. We won together." The people of Nyrus watched him with awe. They had never seen anyone fight with such courage, yet Daniel never boasted or demanded attention. His quiet strength inspired them more than any words could. From the sky, small reconnaissance ships of the Krith returned, scanning the valley. Daniel looked up. "They are testing us, looking for weakness. But we are ready." He turned to Lyra. "We need to prepare for their full assault. The next wave will be larger, faster, and more dangerous." Lyra nodded. "Then we will fight too." Daniel smiled faintly. "That is why we stand. Not alone, but together." The villagers, encouraged by his words, helped repair the grid, reposition turrets, and reinforce their shelters. Children carried small tools, adults lifted supplies, and elders offered guidance. Every effort, no matter how small, strengthened the city. That evening, Daniel stood on the central tower once again. The sky had darkened as the Krith fleet approached in formation, hundreds of ships moving like a single living shadow. Lyra joined him, watching silently as the fleet drew closer. "They will not expect what comes next," Daniel said. "What do you mean?" Lyra asked. "Humans are underestimated," he replied. "They see one person and think it is not enough. They forget that courage, skill, and heart can outmatch numbers." The first wave of dropships entered orbit. Energy beams from the defense grid fired automatically, guided by Daniel's commands. The Krith were strong, but Daniel moved faster, predicting their paths and directing the turrets with perfect timing. The valley became a dance of light and shadow, a symphony of defense and precision. Lyra watched in amazement as Daniel leapt from turret to turret, sometimes moving along the ground, sometimes climbing the old towers to adjust the systems manually. Every move was calculated, every action perfect. The villagers had never seen anything like it. Why is he so strong? One of the young technicians whispered. He is human, another replied. But not just any human. He is HumanMight. The name carried weight. The legend of HumanMight, once thought lost to history, was alive in this one man. But it was not his armor, his weapons, or even his training that made him remarkable. It was his heart. The courage to fight for others even when the odds were against him. The Krith launched missiles at the city, aiming for the central power grid. Daniel moved swiftly, catching each missile with precise energy pulses, destroying them before they could hit the ground. His actions saved the city, but he did not pause. Another wave of drones descended from the sky. Without hesitation, Daniel activated a hidden sequence in the defense grid, opening underground energy vents that released powerful blasts, scattering the drones. He moved among the machines like a conductor guiding an orchestra. Every action counted, every choice mattered. Lyrae, standing beside him, felt a mixture of fear and pride. She realized now that this human, who she once thought gentle and fragile, carried the strength of generations within him. He fought not for glory, not for reward, but because it was right. Hours passed. The battle continued, but slowly, the Krith forces began to retreat. Their ships were damaged, their troops disorganized. The human warrior had turned the tide. Finally, as the first light of Nairis' twin suns broke over the horizon, the enemy ships lifted off and disappeared into deep space. The city was battered but alive. The people came out of hiding, cheering, crying, and hugging each other. They had survived thanks to one human who had revealed the warrior within. Lyrae ran to Daniel, who was standing on the tower, surveying the aftermath. "You did it," she said. "You really did it." Daniel looked at her and shook his head. "No, we did it, all of us. The people, the machines, the courage in every heart. It all matters. Humans can fight, but it is the heart that wins wars." She smiled, tears forming in her eyes. "I thought you were only human, but you're something more." Daniel smiled faintly. "Being human is enough. That is why I fight." The villagers gathered around them, surrounding Daniel with gratitude. They spoke of his bravery, his skill, and his heart. But Daniel remained humble. He thanked them in turn, reminding them that they had all played a part. He spoke of courage, hope, and the importance of standing together against darkness. Later, Lyrae walked with Daniel through the quiet streets. The city was still recovering, but hope filled every corner. She looked at him, curiosity and admiration in her eyes. "Why did you come to Nairis?" she asked. He paused. "I came for peace. I wanted to find a world where I could rest. But peace does not come without protection. I saw your people and I knew I had to act. That is all." She smiled softly. "You carry so much. The strength, the skill, the courage, all of it. Yet you are humble." Daniel looked at the sky, watching the twin suns rise. Courage is not about showing power. It is about standing for what is right. Even when the world doubts you, that is what humans do. Lyrae understood then that Daniel's true power was not in his armor or weapons. It was in his heart, in his will, in the quiet determination to protect others. He had shown her and her people that even one human with courage and care could change the fate of a world. Days passed, and the city slowly returned to life. Repairs were made, children played in the streets once more, and traders came back with supplies. Daniel stayed with the people, helping rebuild, teaching, and guiding. He became more than a visitor. He became a symbol of hope, of strength, and of the HumanMight legacy. One evening, Lyrae and Daniel stood on the hill overlooking the city. The air was warm, the lights of Nairis sparkling like stars on the ground. "You changed everything here," Lyrae said quietly. Daniel shook his head. "No, humans change things when they care. You changed things too, by trusting me, by standing with me. Together we showed them what it means to fight for peace." She looked at him, feeling something she had never felt before. Gratitude, admiration, and a quiet affection that grew with every passing day. "I believed humans were fragile," she said softly. "I was wrong." "You were right in one way," Daniel replied. "We are human. Fragile, yes, but also capable of great strength when it matters," Lyrae smiled. "Then your kind is truly remarkable." Daniel looked at her with a faint smile, the sunlight glinting in his eyes. "We all have a warrior inside, waiting for the right moment. Mine just happened to awaken today." The two of them stood in silence, watching Nairis bloom once more under the twin suns. The battle had ended, but its memory remained, a lesson of courage, hope, and the enduring power of humanity. The story of the human warrior spread across the stars. Travelers spoke of Daniel, the man who came from a distant world and defended Nairis with heart and skill. His legend became a symbol not of fear but of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest hour, one human could stand tall, inspire others, and reveal the true might of humanity. Lyrae knew that she would never forget him, not just for his power but for the way he carried himself, the way he cared, the way he inspired everyone around him. And Daniel, he remained quietly vigilant, ready for the next challenge, ready to protect not for fame but because it was the right thing to do. The warrior within him had awakened, and it would never sleep again. The people of Nairis had survived. They had seen courage, skill, and the human heart in its purest form, and they knew that no matter what came next, hope and strength would always rise when humans stood together. The twin suns set, casting golden light across the city, and Daniel and Lyrae stood together, looking toward the future. The legend of human might had returned, not as a story of conquest, but as proof that even one human guided by heart and courage could change the fate of a world.